ready to roll. All right, are you fired up?
I'm fired up.
You fired up?
I'm fired up. Yeah, like the kids.
I got that.
All right, guys. So here we are again. We are doing a retake. We filmed this last week. You know how everything happens, technical difficulties. Apparently the camera wanted to work, then it didn't want to work, then it really didn't want to work. So we got some great audio, but no visual. And then on top of that, just to start the morning off, Jonathan woke me up this morning because for some reason I actually slept last night. And at 5:02, John texted me and said, "You up?" And I am now. So here we are. So let's go through this. We're doing the untold costs of life. And what we mean by that is, you know, you grow up, you jump out in the world, and all of a sudden reality sets in and you realize that there's just a bunch of costs that you're just not aware of and that you dive into with kind of in a blind faith of this is what we're supposed to do. And you just drop some big dollars and you conform and figure it out. And then all of a sudden you think, well, why the hell did I do this? And the perfect example is weddings. Weddings. We spend a boatload all for 4 hours to get our friends drunk. It's ridiculous. John, your thoughts? Because I just jumped off.
I have a lot of thoughts. And so in weddings is a great one, right? And when I come to this topic, I think like the untold costs of living, but you know, a lot of it is, for me, on topic is the weddings, the birthday parties, the grad parties, the events that we host for all these different reasons, and birthday parties being a big one. And you know, nobody really, when they're going through their financial planning class in high school, remember we took that, you know, yep. When they start talking about all the things that you're going to end up having to pay for and host and do, yeah, because I vaguely remember that now. You know, these are the things that come up in our lives over and over again. And especially if you're a parent, which we are, you know, we got kids. He's got more kids than I, so he's got a little bit more experience with this, you know, but all these things start popping up. And, you know, there's this idea that we have to do these things because of tradition, because of obligation, because if we don't, we're going to be missing out. You know, a fear of being judged for not having a big enough event, or having too small of an event, or not having an event at all, or there's so much craziness behind a lot of this stuff. And you know, when we were talking last week, some of the numbers that we got brought up is that the average wedding costs, I think Forbes said it's about like $32,000.
Yep.
$32,000, right? And like you said, it's a 4-hour event. Basically, everybody's just getting drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, that's not at every wedding, you know. And when we come to this topic, it's like, okay, we're strictly talking about the absurdities that we find in life. Not everybody's like this. There's an average for a reason. But some of it is silly. Like last year, I went to a wedding, right? I don't go to many weddings. I don't have a lot of friends, but you know, and maybe because of stuff like this, but it was this extravagant wedding, right? Everybody had a blast. 10 people probably remembered it. But it was just an insane amount of stuff, and the amount of stress that they went through and all the things that went into it. You know, my question would be, was it worth it? And I hope it was, right? But for a lot of people, I see a lot of people have all these different events, and it's literally stress from day one till it's over. And then by the time it's over, they're like, oh, thank God that's finally over. And it's like, well, weren't you supposed to be having fun this whole time? Yeah. Wasn't this supposed to be an amazing event? Wasn't this supposed to be about love and commitment, or about cherishing your child's, you know, life and all this stuff, right? You're sitting here stressed out and pissed off that you just dropped 30 grand on something, or 10 grand or $500 on a birthday party that the kid didn't even appreciate. Or you had a bunch of little minions running around that nobody actually liked. You just invited them because you thought you had to, right? You don't even socialize with the parents, right? And it's just all sorts of crazy stuff when it comes to these things. So I don't know. That's kind of just like where I'm at is approaching it from that angle. Like, why are we doing the things that we're doing? Why are we holding these things? Is it because it really is a joyous event for us, right? Is it really because we're connected to the meaning behind it?
I think you're nailing it there. Listen, we spend stupid money with the idea that we're going to create memories. And a lot of times there are memories. Sometimes they're not such great memories, you know. Uncle Johnny, as we joke with, you know, someone, Johnny seems to be the name that we pick.
I don't know.
Uncle Johnny drinks too much, you know, acts like an idiot on the dance floor, hits on someone's college roommate and whatever. So that's always the good story. But, you know, I look at all this and we're just talking about the untold, you know, charges that we don't think of. $30,000. $30,000. That is a shit ton of money for one party. $30,000 for memories. Like, how did this become the norm? Like, it just perplexes me. And then you sit there and we looked at the average 1-year-old birthday party is $500.
I think the 1-year-old, was it more? I thought it was
$500 to $1,000, but I'm just going to go on the low end.
Okay.
Even on the low end, $500 for a child. We're making memories. That child's never, ever going to remember. Tell me how your 1-year-old birthday party was. It pretty good?
Look, it was fantastic. Cake? Listen, man, they, no.
But it's looking at stuff like this and thinking to yourself, what's it for? Like, truly, what is it for? Like, you went to one and it was amazing. And oh my God, little Tommy, he stuffed his face in the cake and he mashed it. And, oh my God, that was so cute. And now your little boy's turning one. Like, well, you got to top that. It's like, oh, I have to keep up. The Joneses keeping up with the Joneses. And like, oh God. And now there's a graduation party and let's invite the entire school and let's do this. Or, you know, it's little Timmy's 9th birthday and let's invite his whole class. Like, he's got 31 kids in his class. How many kids does Timmy hang out with? Like, okay, so, and now expense. And if you have it, great.
Yeah, whatever.
But I'd still come back to my famous word, my 3-year-old. Why do we feel pressured to have these parties that just cost a ridiculous amount of money and really, from a memory standpoint, is just another year of birthdays?
Yeah, sometimes, and I joke about this, but you're basically just buying a really expensive photo album, right? Now it's just more cloud storage on your phone or whatever. But you're like paying for memories. But there's a part of me that thinks that we get so caught up in trying to plan these things, right? These weddings, these birthday parties and all that stuff. Like, we miss out on the actual memory of it happening, right? And one of the things that we talk about a lot is during these events, if you're hosting, first of all, you're paying for everything. Second, you're so caught up in trying to please everybody that's there, you're not even enjoying anything most of the time, right? Like, if you have a party at your house, I don't know anybody that has a party at their house. I know a couple of people, right? But that aren't just constantly on edge about making sure all the food's taken care of, making sure everybody's got a drink, making sure everybody's all the TV's got everything that everybody wants on it, making sure that nobody's arguing, making sure that there's no bickering or the kids aren't fighting or nobody's breaking anything or, you know, all this stuff, right? And, you know, in birthday parties, like, is my kid happy? Oh my God, he's not talking to all these other kids because I invited 30 kids, but he's only talking to 3 kids. And oh my God, at the wedding, I got to worry about, you know,
Uncle Johnny
making sure that he doesn't get too drunk and falls through a table and makes too big of a scene and, you know, all this stuff, right? Like, you gotta, it gets carried away at a certain point. And I'll go back to, like, was it worth it? You know?
I don't know. I think we get caught up, and trust me, I'm there. I have daughters that are probably, I'm going to get the question from the boyfriends that it's coming, and I will be in that situation to have to make those decisions and either be the ass or be the guy that's going to spend stupid money and be the hypocrite based on this conversation. So that's that side. But I look at it too and think, yes, I'll actually play the side. There are incredible memories, and you do bring family together, and it's not, you know, family is extended and you never see them. So it's like, okay, here's an event. And our family event is a wedding or a death. And you probably, if you showed up as a stranger, you wouldn't know the difference between the two unless you were in the church and one had a casket and one had a bride. But I still go back to, yeah, sure, you are creating some pretty great memories. I can think back to my weddings, and there were some great stories, some incredible stories. But if I think about the cost for both weddings, wow, I got some pretty good stories that I think I spent $10 on, and the stories are just as great. I want to move over though, because I wrote this down too. Some of the other untold costs outside of events like that you think about. we touched upon this last week, I think, or the week before, with sports.
Oh man.
Ridiculous. I'm now going to coach a baseball team, a travel baseball team next year, and it's overwhelming, the tournaments and the weekends away and all this stuff. And my son's going to be 10, and I'm getting sucked into this, and I'm watching these kids with, and I saw some TikTok the other day that it was, the kid carrying a bag, and in the bag was a $400 bat, a like $400 or $300 glove. What do they call them?
Those slide gloves.
The slide.
Oh my god, dude!
That stupid shit. It's just whatever it came to. They said it was like $1,100 worth of stuff in this bag.
Just equipment
For this 9 or 10-year-old kid. And you think, what do we have back in our day? We had one bag of shit that had 3 helmets in it, 3 bats. One had ding marks in it, probably from some kid the previous year hitting rocks with it. Catcher's gear that was probably 25 years old and dusty as shit, and a helmet that probably had so much lice in it that, no one ever thought to rinse it out because you never thought of that stuff. But that was what we had. And now these kids each have their own bag and their own swag and their stupid slide gloves. And it's like, how did we get sucked into this bullshit of expenses? And it's like, yep. Why? Again, why? What are we proving?
What, dude? Because Tommy has it all, man. Because Johnny has it all.
I don't get it. I don't.
And I could be wrong, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is across the board thing, but I think one of the biggest things we face with a lot of this stuff is the fear of missing out and the fear of judgment, right? Because I remember what it's like to not have a lot of money growing up, right? And having the hand-me-down equipment and all that stuff, right? And you're comparing yourself to the kid who comes onto the field whose dad makes, $500,000 a year, and he's got the $400 bat and the $400, and you feel like shit, right? Because you're surrounded by these kids who have better stuff than you.
Yep.
And so a lot of it, I think, and this goes to the events, to the equipment, to everything, right? Where we fear that either we or our kids are missing out on something. I don't know what it is. What are you missing out by having a $30 bat? I bought my kid a $16 bat or something, right? And guess what? He still hits better than the kids that are using the $100, $200 bats, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know what he's missing out on. I don't know what I missed out on because I still had to play the same way. I still had to live my life the same way, right? Like I don't really know what we're missing out on or what judge. I think we think other people think about us too much.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
When
you know what it might be
stuff.
too? You might be onto something here. Is that it's, at least from my vantage point, it's like you're trying to relive, especially with the kids, you're trying to relive your life through your kids. Like, if you had this and you had that and whatever, and, or if you could have only had a better bat or a better glove, you could have been something. So
might have gone pro.
When you can afford to do it, you buy more and you give more and you do. And I'm in that boat. I'm guilty. My biggest question though is from a financial, when you don't have it, when you really don't have that extra $350 to go out and buy your kid a bat, like it's a stretch. It could be you miss a bill because you bought him this thing and you still do it. Is it for the love of your kid? Is it for because everyone else has one on the team and you don't want your kid to feel like a schmuck? Is it that you don't want to feel like a schmuck? I mean, who knows what it is, but it's that constant feeling of, I don't know, is it judgment? Is it acceptance? Is it whatever? Or is it like kind of like what we say all the time? I don't fucking care. But cares. It's a different thought process that you and I have. But again, hypocrite being hypocrite, and I'll admit it. I bought my son a $350 bat on a pure pressure moment because I worked out of town. I wasn't there for the games. I was constantly flying out for business and doing this, that, and the other thing. We took him to the batting cage. I bought him the damn bat. I look at it now and think, ridiculous.
Well, look, man, I think that might be another part of it, especially with raising kids, is that, and I can relate to this, is I feel like I'm not there enough. right? So like I'm trying to compensate by providing more for them, more stuff that,
Right.
you know, gives them a quick rush of, oh my God, that's awesome. And then here's the funny thing too is, and on the same topic, is I have spent the extra money on some stuff with my kids, and literally like a week later, they completely forget that it's even happened, right? Like it's just like another thing that they have, you know, and like they don't even care.
Yeah.
You know, I could have bought my kid a $20 bat and told him it was a $300 bat, and he would have looked at it the same. He wouldn't have cared.
No.
I honestly,
well,
I mean,
sure,
he's 7.
His friends would have known as soon as he came to practice, like, oh, that's a cheap bat. Because they're little assholes too. And of course, they're going to say something.
God. Well,
yeah. It's, I looked up something here too that it just popped in my head when you think about these kids in sports and, oh, I have to give them the best. They're going to make it to the pros. And it's just wanted to know this factual evidence. Again, it's on the internet. So it's true, but it says 0.5, not 1%, but 0.5, 0.5% of high school senior boys playing intergalactic. Yeah, the guys that go out into space. Interscholastic baseball will eventually be drafted by an MLB team. 0.5, so 0.5% of people, if they're playing high school baseball, will be drafted. Well, how many kids are on a high school baseball team? 15? So that means all your little league years in that local community that I'm going to be a major league ball player and I'm going to have all the best swag and I'm going to have a stupid fucking slide glove. Yeah, I'm saying it's the stupidest thing ever invented. They don't make the high school team. Well, if they ain't making the high school team, they ain't making the pros.
How are they going to get scouted?
If you have 500 kids playing travel ball, rec ball, this ball in the local community, and only 15 make the high school team, and of those, 0.5%. So what's 0.5% of 15? It's so fractional. It would be disgusting.
Not even a whole person.
What the person looks like. Right? So it's like, okay, we did all this, and granted, you have to do this stuff to, you know, because there will be that one diamond in the bunch that holy shit, he's a major leaguer. But I go back to here's another untold cost that we just keep on spending.
Well, and go ahead. Sorry.
No, go.
And here's my argument with this, right? We spend all this money on this equipment and all these things to try to make our kids better players, right? And my argument would be stop doing that, make them play harder, right? You want them to go pro, it's not the bat, it's not the glove.
Right.
That's not what makes people go pro, and I'm pretty sure, I wouldn't bet my life on it, but I'm willing to bet a lot of pros would tell you that. It's not about the bat, it's not about the glove. A lot of them came from nothing, right? So why do we think that at 10 years old, it makes that big of a difference? Why do I think that, why do I think that having these things or doing this stuff is going to guarantee success?
I don't think, and that's the bullshit here is the conversation on this that I want to always make sure we try and get back to is, why are we doing things? Like, is there a way to change it? Is there a way to look at something before you make the decision, before you leap all the way in and say, okay, is this really necessary? Who's benefiting and who's losing? Like, if we don't have this big, elaborate birthday party for my son who turned 7, where we invite grandma and Uncle Charlie, and Uncle Johnny's on the dry dock this week, so he can come too, and blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, you got 28 people in your house, and you're making food, and you're catering this, and and you got to clean up. And of course, the husband's got to do his honey-do list to fix the one thing that he promised he'd fix, and now you got the perfect excuse. Either way, and you're dropping $1,000. Again, for what? For what? For what reason? So it's like looking at this now and looking at your events in life and saying, if you're doing it for a memory's sake, fantastic. If you're doing it because you just love doing it, fantastic. But if you're doing it because someone will judge you, like, oh, you're not having us all over for his birthday, or you're only inviting 30 people to your wedding, or you're not having this big elaborate function, or you just bought him a glove at Walmart. Like, what does it matter? Like, why are we so nervous about why people are judging us in where we fit in society of, you're in the cool club because you did this? Like, it just puzzles me.
Yeah, I think I said it last week when we were doing this originally. It's like, I don't really care.
Right.
I don't care, right? And when I say I don't care, I'm like, you shouldn't care that I care about some of these things, right? Like, I don't care if you spend $30,000 on a wedding. I don't. Right? If you do or don't, doesn't matter to me at all. And for your reasons that you do it, I really, at the end of the day, don't care. Okay? If you have it, do it. If you want to do it, do it.
Sure.
Don't care. Back to what you said, though, like, I am going to ask why. If you come to me and say, I'm in debt, right? But I'm going to drop $30,000 on a wedding. Why? Like, why?
I don't get it.
Right? Because like 30 grand, right? Now I'm going to specifically talk about this because I got married and I had a really small wedding. I can't tell you what I spent on the wedding. It was just so small. Had a blast, right? There's so many things I could do in life. If you're talking about memories, me personally, 30 grand, I can take a whole month off and go to Europe.
Oh, yeah.
An entire 30-day trip and have I mean, like, dude, $1,000 a day, dude. Like, fucking massive time there, right? And so, I don't know. I sit here and compare things like that. It's, you know, and why even and do it to begin with, right? Like, I can do so many things, and talking about kids and the equipment and the birthday parties and stuff like that. Like, I have had times with my kids and bought equipment, like I said, with the bat and the baseball bat. Like, they don't know the difference.
Yeah.
I invite one of his best friends over for a birthday party and we go bowling or something. Do kids just as excited as if we went anywhere else? And it tapers off the same.
Yep.
Right. So, you know, I don't know. It's just, there's so many rules to being an adult, right? Societal expectations and obligations and traditions that we have to uphold. For what reason? I don't know. Traditions is one of those things that like drives me insane.
Yeah.
For some reason, like, well, it's tradition. This is just how it's always been. This is what we've always done. This is how we raised you. So this is how you should raise your kids. This is how we had our wedding. This is how you should have your wedding. Well, we didn't have this, but this is it's just,
yeah.
Like, who said?
I don't. I mean, it's all of this. I think you said it best before. Like, why are we doing it, and why is it that we don't care? And I'll stress what you said. Excuse me. If you have it, that's great. But even if you do have it, I'd still go back to say why. Like, what is the proof? What comes from it? What is the show off factor? And again, fantastic. And I just sit there and think to myself, man, in all of the headaches of life and everything that has to be done and where we put ourselves in society, like, why do we put so much stress untold or, you know, crap that just we put on ourselves that really no one's paying attention to? Like, okay, you only invited 3 kids to a birthday party, or you only had a wedding for 30 people. Like, after someone says, oh, they didn't invite us. Are they that hurt? And if they are that hurt, Jesus, they got a pretty shitty life if they're so hurt they didn't get invited to a wedding for someone that's a niece or nephew that you haven't seen in 6 years. And it's like, wow, it's that opposite side of, okay, you weren't a part of this grand festivity or whatever, and you're hurt. Like, get over it. So we force ourselves to buy into, oh, we have to invite. Oh, and you don't have to do shit.
That's the big point with this for me, right? And it always goes back to the why, right? Are you doing it because you want the memories, all this stuff? If you have the money, cool, do it. But, you know, if it's purely out of obligation, we talked about this with the birthday parties, is like, well, Johnny invited you to his birthday party last month. I know you don't really like Johnny, and he just invited everybody in the class, but we have to invite him because he invited you, kind of thing, right?
Right.
And it's this, I look, one of my decision factors in doing things is, why am I doing this because I want to do it? Because I'm going to, you know, have a good time because this means something to me? Or does it only mean something to me because it means something to somebody else?
Right.
Right? Am I only doing this because of the obligation that I feel towards my parents, my friends, my social surroundings, my school, my kids' friends, whatever it is, right? Am I doing it just purely out of obligation to them? Am I doing it purely out of tradition that I absolutely hate? Right. And we'll talk about holidays later at some point too, right? Where we have these holiday traditions that everybody gets stressed out about and hates, but we still keep doing them,
right?
Because that's how it's always been, right? Is it because of those reasons? Is it because of fear of judgment? Is it fear of being ostracized, fear of being ridiculed, fear of missing out on something? Or is it for pure intentions, right? Like that's the fundamental question that I ask when I'm doing just about anything when it comes to this stuff. Any major purchase, any major event, any of these things, right? Like, am I inviting the right people? And here's the thing, right? This is so silly. I find this like the funniest part about this, right? We invite people that we don't like because we would feel bad that they might feel bad, and we don't even like them, or we invite them because we don't want them to judge us.
Right.
It's like, those are the people that you want to hang around with. Like, you like feeling like that. You like feeling like that. You like feeling like other people around you are judging you all the time, or like they're making fun of you behind your back. Like, those are the people. Those are the best friends I've ever had in my life, man. Right. I bet you could say the same thing. Anybody can say the people that judge me the most are the best people in my life. I love them so dearly. I
love being judged.
I love feeling like the people around me are talking about me behind my back, right? Like,
so I keep on thinking as you're talking, the thing that pops into my head is high school. It's like we've never graduated from high school. We're always trying to be in the clique, the cool kid club or whatever it is, the jocks are, who cares? Again, why? I keep saying why. It's my famous question all the time. Let me jump another level here, because we were talking more about events and all that stuff. Like I also look at being a young person graduating. I've tried to do this with my kids. Don't get caught up in the speed of being, what would be the term? Don't get caught up in being an adult too fast, meaning go out and get yourself a nice car and go out and buy a house and go out and get all these things. Like, life is expensive. It's like, okay, you're only making so much money when you graduate from college, if you graduate from college, or when you leave high school and you want to go out and get a job, but you tie yourself down with expenses all because you're supposed to, or like you said, tradition, and then I do this, and then I do this. And before you know it, you're broke as a joke. You don't have the finances to take care of stuff. Then you get invited to a wedding and you're like, holy shit. Like, okay, I got to give, let's say, $100 to the person. And oh my God, they're having a wedding in Tennessee in some, resort and whatever. I don't think there's any resorts in Tennessee. Bad choice.
There's a lot of resorts in Tennessee. Is there?
Right, fine. Then we're going back to Tennessee. But now there's a $500 weekend, and there's this, and there's flights, and it's like, holy shit, you just spent $1,000 now, and you're in this age of life where you feel like it's a burden to get invited to these things. And you have other major expenses that you've tied yourself down to, and you force yourself to go, but you literally don't have enough money to pay the rent because you went to this wedding because, again, everyone else was going to the wedding. So it's like, what do you do and how do you do it? And these are those things that sneak up on you. And like, then you think, holy shit, I have this. And I think of my daughters. They have close-knit friends, where there's 6 or 7, 8 close friends, and they're all getting married because once one says I do, then it's like, man, the snowball's over the hill. Here we go. And now you look at a 2 or 3 year window, and they probably will each spend $15,000 to $20,000 a year in showing up to these weddings for their girlfriends.
That's such a good point. And I was looking at this from the outside perspective too, with the whole obligation to go do things and whatnot and participate. And I love hearing, I hate it, but it's funny to me when people come and they're like, yeah, I got invited to a wedding. Oh yeah, cool. Well, it's down in Florida. They're having it on a Thursday, right? So now I have to go down there on Tuesday. I have to fly down Tuesday night or Wednesday morning so that I can go there for, the events that take place before it. So now I have to call off a whole week of work, basically. Yep. So now not only I'm paying for the plane ticket, I'm paying for my own food. I got to pay for my, if you're in the wedding, you got to pay for the tux or the dress or whatever it is. You got to pay for the hotel, right? You got to pay for a car to get around down there.
Yep.
You're now not getting paid for a whole week, right? And so like I'm just sitting there like, oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, and
right?
what's even better about that too is, and again,
I'm not saying don't. Yeah.
Do it. They have these Thursday night and Friday night things, and why do they have them on Thursday nights and Friday nights?
Because they're cheaper.
Because they're cheaper. For who? The person throwing the party. Okay, that's awesome, but everyone else that has to fly in town, nothing's cheaper. And it's like you said, okay, I got to burn vacation days. And I go back to the young people. When you start a job, how many vacation days you get? 10?
When you first start?
I mean, if you're, let's say you're at a reputable company that, you know, HR department, all that crap, they give you 2
legit
weeks,
jobs.
10 days, legit jobs. You know, if you're like I was and you graduate and you're working on a construction crew, like, you know,
good luck.
The dude looked at you and said, how many days you want to take off? Really? Okay. All right. That's all you're taking off. But I still go back to saying, okay, you only get so many vacation days. And now you're forced to use vacation days because your best friend decided to have a wedding in Florida. And you have all these expenses and all the shit and everything else. And it's like, again, why? Why are you putting that undue stress on people to be invited to an event that's a 4-hour party with really fancy table settings and flowers and all of the nitty gritty? And we're gonna have pizza at the end of this the thing after the dance and the DJ ends. Like, oh my God, good, we're so hungry. Like, okay, great. What are we doing? Like, there's crazy expenses going on here. Parents, how are we allowing our kids to say, oh, I want to have a destination wedding? Like, do you realize the burden that puts on family members? I had a destination wedding. Hypocrite. But we put it out there and said, here's the cost. If you can't come, we fully understand. The 63 people that attended my wedding were my close friends and family. That's it. There were family members that I was close with that couldn't afford to come. I got it. They didn't come. It was what it was.
Well, I think that's one of those things that distinguishes certain people is when you say, I don't really care if you come or not, if you can't afford it, you actually mean it. A lot of people are afraid that you don't actually mean it and try to find a way to come anyways. Right.
Right.
So like we sit here and this is one of those like twisted things about this whole topic is that we play all these stories in our head and we have all these scripts written and all these things that we think are reality, right? When I invite people to things and I'm like, if you can't make it, you can't make it. I really mean that. Like, if you can't make it, don't come. If you can't afford to come, don't come. Right. But then like, I remember being in a place where like, oh, he doesn't mean that I should show up or I'm going to feel bad or he's going to think that I don't like him or, you know, all this stuff. Right? Like those are real things that like people play throughout their heads when it comes to this stuff. Like, oh my God, if I don't show up to the wedding, my family's going to say something or, you know, whatever. Right. And we just, I think we think entirely too much about a lot of stuff. And there's so many people out there who play that game with the guilt trips and, you know, all that stuff where like, that's like a factor now where so many people are so afraid that that's how other people are thinking.
Right.
You know, it's just, it's insane to me that like, that's the place that we've gotten to in life where we like play all these mental games.
It's mental games in our own head.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like they're mental games and we come up with these stories that like, if he said he doesn't care, I'm just going to assume that he doesn't care.
Right.
Cool. Like what, how hard is that?
Yeah.
Right. Like, isn't that so much easier being like, oh, he's really not going to be mad if I don't show up. Cool. I'm going to keep living my life. Right. Like
he's just saying that. He's just saying that to be nice. Like, it's okay. Like, but what if he's not? What if we shouldn't? Like, oh my God.
I get paranoid. Like I used to be a pretty paranoid person. Right. Like I went through this. I totally get it. But it's just, isn't it easier just to assume the best?
Yes.
Right. Like how hard it is to sit there and retell your stories over and over again in your head. Right. Like, and keep that like weird reality that illusion going on for so long. Like that takes a lot of work, man. It takes a lot of work to be that paranoid or to be that like pressed and pressured. We pressure ourselves most of the time. Like we put the pressure on ourselves. We think the pressure is coming from other people.
Yeah.
It's coming from in here, man. And it's like the effort that it takes to do that is insane when it's so much easier to just be like, okay, cool. I'm just, you know, you don't care. I don't care.
But my thing will be for all of this is There's all of this stress of money. Yeah. It's every day. I say it to my clients. The hardest way to make a decision is when you're broke. When you have to make a financial decision, it's easy to make decisions when there's plenty of money in the bank. Actually, you make stupider decisions because there's plenty of money in the bank. You buy shit you don't need. You throw events that are probably not necessary. You build big places like this that make no sense, but it is what it is. The feeling, though, going back to your point, is what is this part of our brain that constantly worries about being enough in the eyes of someone else, or feeling bad for someone else that they can't do something or whatever. It's like, okay, it's you in life, or you and your family and your immediate family. When I say immediate family, your wife, your husband, your kids. And if you're not married yet, then, maybe your parents. Why do we put so much stress on our shoulders to carry the burden? And they're really just thoughts of burden for other people. So we go to events, we hold events, we buy shit, we do shit, all for the benefit of someone's acceptance, someone's less judgment, if that's even a term. Like, why are we not comfortable in our own skin to just say, here's my decision, this is what we're doing, and guess what? I'm going to put my head on the pillow tonight, and I'm not going to give it another thought. Again, you and I are different. We can make those decisions, and there's times where I'm sure we'll still make the dumb decision because we're worried about someone, like holidays, and we'll get into that whole thing. But it's like, okay, it's at some point, and I think this is why the older you get, the less you give a shit. Where you listen to some old dude and he just says whatever the hell. You're like, dude, you can't say that. He's like, bullshit, I can't say that. He says it and he doesn't give a shit. Like, who cares? And if you sit back and you think he's right, no, he shouldn't be mean or whatever, but who does care? That's our problem. Too many people care.
I love the quote that it's those that matter don't care, those that care don't matter.
Yep.
Right. And I'm one of those people, like, I care about people. I just don't care what people think.
Right.
Right. Like, I genuinely care about others. I don't care what they think about me anymore, because those that matter in my life aren't going to judge me.
Right.
For the things that I say, do or don't say.
Yep.
Period.
Yep. You're right. It is. Again, we are a different breed. And I think that's why we have this show. This is why we like to talk. And sometimes we'll sound like complete douchebags, like a bunch of dicks. Oh yeah, we're not going to have weddings. No, we're not. That's not the point of this. I think the point of this podcast and Life Roast is really, let's step out of our human, if we can, hover above and say, what are you doing? Like, seriously, did you think this through? Did you do a little research? Did you try and put yourself on the other side of the wedding? Meaning okay, here's the day and here's this, and you're losing sleep and you're going nuts and holy shit, and how do I do this and da. And ultimately, what was it? Like, can we step outside of it and realize, and this goes for any topic that we talk about, can you just stop for a second, not be you, not think like you, and ask yourself, would you do this again? Before it happens, before the choice is made. I mean, we've talked about crazy coaches in baseball, and we've talked about, the I can't and I don't want to's and in the different events of what we're been talking. And it's really just comes back to why we make fun of it. Why the hell do we make these choices in life believing it's the right thing to do? Is it for us or is it for everyone else? And I feel like everyone does shit because they're worried about what other people are going to do or say. And that's where I just shake my head and I want to roast it all day long. Like, if you got hit by a car tomorrow and you're in the emergency room, how many of those people that you are so worried about are sitting at your bedside ready to give you a kidney because you need a kidney replacement? Like, I can't say that of your 50 worries that 48 of them are going to be standing at the side of your bed, because they won't be. They'll be sending a message on the internet like, I hope you're good and I hope you do well and I'm here for you. Whatever.
They're also the same people that are filming it instead of helping.
Right. Right.
Just standing by, just watching.
Yeah.
Go down.
So this is where we're at in this podcast series is take a moment. Don't just listen to what we're making fun of, but look at your own life and question, why am I making the decisions that I'm making? Why did I buy certain things? Who am I trying to compete with or impress or want to bring into my circle? Like, why? Just ask yourself that. It doesn't make you happy. Did you do the things you did for yourself? Because if it was for yourself and it was for your family and they're just excited and it's awesome and then fantastic.
Hell yeah, dude.
But if you did it for the impressive factor or the look at me, I'm so cool, or hey, I actually became something. I'm not the high school dweeb. I'm actually the cool guy. Like, I don't think anyone's paying attention. I think you're carrying shit from previous days that just you didn't feel enough back then, and now you want to impress. And if you got it, great. And if that's what makes you feel better, again, I'm not here to tell you yes or no, it's right or wrong. But if you can step outside yourself and look down and ask, is this really necessary?
Man, there's a lot of power in that. They're really just questioning it.
Yeah. So as we continue these, we're gonna try and get a little more streamlined. John and I made the decision, like, these go on and we ramble and we rant and whatever, but we're gonna get a little more focused on each topic to give you guys better kind of start finish ideas, and then we'd really like your input, comments and all that stuff. Hell, call us if you know us, and give us ideas of what you want to talk about or things that drive you nuts about life and what you laugh about, and just how your life has gone in the right or the wrong direction and based on some silly decision you made. We want to hear everything you got. So reach out, do all the magic. What do we got to do? Subscribe and like and
pressing the like button.
Yeah, some bell or some other stuff like that.
Dance around in a circle.
Yeah,
wave to the guys.
Yeah, and when you press the button, like tap a toe. But another good week, guys. Please, hopefully the camera worked. We'll put this online soon.
All right. You guys take care.
Thanks, guys.